Hi and welcome to Grow Your UK Fashion and Textile Business with UKFT. I'm Tara Hounslea, Director of Communications, and in this episode we're focusing on compliance and regulations, what your business needs to know to stay informed, compliant and competitive. Today I'm joined by UKFT's Compliance Manager, Ava Kenny-Colwell. Ava and her team help UK fashion and textile businesses navigate compliance, regulation and labelling across global markets. Our team works to ensure your business is informed, prepared and aligned with current and upcoming legislation affecting the UK fashion and textile industry. Hi Ava.
Hello.
Can you tell us a bit more about your background and your team?
So both members of the compliance team have an industry background. So we have worked for various brands and retailers and have practical experience with compliance and regulations. We've both held positions in product and fabric technical and garment technical and experience meeting mandatory standards. We've got experience preventing returns, preventing recalls and preventing consumer complaints and a multi-product background. So children's wear, footwear, apparel and home textiles and products.
And that actual industry background means you understand the challenges that businesses are going through. You can kind of...
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we can help. It's sometimes quite difficult to navigate what's going on and make the right decisions. And we've got experience doing that.
And so UKFT's compliance department has grown quite rapidly. This has become a much more important part of what we do recently. What has changed? Why has that happened? And where do you come in?
I think the compliance department at UKFT grew out of Brexit. So a lot of changes were made and businesses needed the support in complying with those changes. So it was formed from Brexit, and then we've had a lot of changes within sustainability-based regulations. So businesses have required support and advice on how to navigate and comply with those new regulations. We've had developments and changes within safety regs, and we've also had global trade developments. So businesses have needed some extra support on how to navigate those scenarios.
Can you give us an example of a business that recently approached UKFT about one of these issues?
So recently in the US, we've had some changes with trade tariffs and businesses have required some extra support. Those changes have been made quite quickly and have also gone backwards and forwards in terms of the changes. So supporting businesses, each day in some cases to make sure that they understand what's happening on that day or that week, because it has changed quite quickly.
And why do you think businesses come to UKFT for compliance support?
We have a lot of areas of support. So we can support with labelling regulations and the translations that come with those, because there's quite a lot of mandatory translations required on product. We can provide the Genitex license, which is the trademark symbols, care symbols that you see on garment labels. Product safety, chemical testing, so test methodologies, what tests to actually request, because there's a plethora of testing that you can require or request. Performance testing as well. So if you've got higher expectations for your product, what testing you might request to meet a certain level of performance, anything to prevent product recalls, so any safety, especially with children's wear, there's choking hazards, choking, strangulation, so any support around those to prevent any product recalls, environmental and sustainability regs, so there's lots that are proposed, so helping navigate when to comply with those is quite key at the moment. Greenwashing labelling checks. We can support not only with what not to say, because we can say, you can or cannot say those, but helping to rearrange the language into something that is so you can say it. Compliance with EPR schemes is quite a big one at the moment. So we've got various different schemes across the world, both in packaging and textiles. So businesses need support in navigating the amount of them, and also HS code and trade agreement support, just to prevent duty back payments.
So it's a real broad sort of overview of what's going on.
Yeah, very broad.
In the UK and increasingly
and globally,
international. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us about another example of how we've helped businesses? Obviously, you can't talk about specific names, but tell us a bit about what that actually looks like in practice.
Yeah. So, this week we had a member with looking at drawstrings on children's product. Wanted to check that they knew the right lengths, but they were also supplying to not just the UK, but they were supplying to the EU, they were supplying to the US. So initially their email was correct and they had the correct lengths, but they didn't realise that the US drawstring lengths are actually different to that is required in the EU and UK. So those needed to be amended, and we supported the garment tech team, but also the design team, to make sure that they're designed first time round correctly.
And that could be a really costly mistake. That could be either the product gets sent back, or that could have...
Oh yeah, it's a main reason why children's wear is recalled.
Oh, thank you. And I suppose the other thing, we've sort of touched on it, but what kind of companies do you work with across the supply chain? It must be a really broad group of companies with very different needs.
Yeah, so the compliance team works with a wide range of the UKFT network, right from spinners, dyers, fabric manufacturers, garment manufacturers, brands, and the retailers.
And what kind of roles within those businesses do you work with?
Can be any role. I mean, depends on the size of the business and how the business is set up. Sometimes we're speaking to the managing director, and sometimes we're speaking to a design assistant. So our level of support, it's meant to be tailored to the individual and the business, to make sure that they can achieve the same goal, which is to be compliant.
And I suppose it's explaining it in a way that they can understand, and because some of this is really technical, some of this is...
Yeah, some regulations are much more complicated than others and require, cross-departmental support, and implementation. So yeah, it's can be hard work.
You've had a few recently, haven't you, that are really tricky regulations, even for you, even for people with a compliance background to understand. So I think interpreting that for companies is really useful, and sort of, again, what do I need to do now? What do I need to think about in the future? And actually understanding that on a practical basis.
Yeah, we try to make it as easy as possible for businesses, whether that be, simplifying it down or just pulling out their obligations and making it, very easy. I mean, regulations are written in like a different language.
Exactly.
So making it as simple as possible.
And I suppose, again, that having that industry experience that you've got, understanding their kind of constraints, because again, a lot of our, some of our businesses, some of the bigger ones have dedicated compliance departments, and even for them, it's hard to stay on top of what's going on.
Yeah.
But for quite a lot of our members that are smaller, or this is a totally new area for them.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing now is that even some of our, larger businesses, larger brands and retailers, because there's so much happening in the regulatory space worldwide, everyone needs something a little bit more simplified.
Okay, so Ava, on a practical basis, how do members get in touch with you? How do they access this kind of support?
So I think it's important for all members to know that no question is too big or too small. So anything, they can ask us anything if it helps with their daily compliance. We get emails all day, every day. We have phone calls with members. We have Teams calls with members. And we also go and visit them as well. So it depends on what their query is. And we will help. And if a Teams call is easier for the problem that they have at hand, then we will have a Teams call. So any line of communication really is fine. We provide simple labelling and product advice, right through to in-depth compliance checks on complicated regulations. So yeah, it really depends on what they're dealing with and how is best to communicate with them on that. I think another sort of key thing that we do in terms of communication with members is validating confusing or misinformation that is, on the media at the moment regarding various regulations that are pending or proposed. So members are welcome to reach out to us at any point, even on something that's, not been written yet and isn't a current reg. Anything proposed, they're welcome to reach out to us on.
And there's also, we're providing webinars, there's resources, there's guidance that we've put together based on sort of common issues, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. So with the amount of changes that have happened over the last couple of years, we are now producing webinars, guides, resources, sometimes templates. So anything that a business will need to practically comply with a new regulation or even a current regulation. Some of our webinars will be on current and existing regs that people need to comply with. So yeah, lots of different types of support that we're providing to businesses.
Thank you. What are some of the current and future changes that you're seeing on the landscape at the moment? What should people have on their sort of radar?
So we're expecting various trade changes. Can't predict those, but we are expecting those. We're also expecting a lot of new regulations from the EU revolving around their sustainability. It's sustainability-based or circular economy-based regulations. So there's the ESPR, the Eco Design for Sustainable Product Regulation, WFD, which is the Waste Framework Directive, PPWR, Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation, Green Claims, EU Deforestation Regulation, EPR, which is Extended Producer Responsibility, EU GPSR, which is the EU's new safety reg, CSRD, CS-DDD, so Corporate Sustainability Reporting or Due Diligence Directives. There was always amendments being made to REACH in the EU and the UK. Modern slavery statement in the UK is due to be updated. Forced labour laws are being updated and released. Fire and furnishings has been released this year. Toy safety has also been updated or due to be released. It's been drafted. So lots that is coming up in the future. And we will provide detailed resources on how to comply with those.
And who is in scope, guides. I suppose?
Yeah, I think businesses normally appreciate our resources are in a format where it's who needs to comply, what's in scope, what are your obligations, when do you need to do it by. So it's very much a sort of step by step and who, what, when, where.
Even the cross section of those acronyms, that is a mouthful in itself.
Yes, there's a lot of acronyms. We speak in abbreviations, but they do start to cross over, and I think that's something that we will be doing in the future. A lot of those are proposed, but going forward, UKFT will be developing resources and guides that help to explain how those regulations interlink, because a lot of them do. There are crossovers between a lot of those.
Let's talk about collaboration. We work with a wide range of partners who can offer support in specialist areas. Can you tell us a bit about the different partners that we work with and how that works?
Yes. So we've partnered with organisations that can support with compliance that you might not have capacity to do in-house. It might not be that you've got capacity, actually. It might be that you don't have the time, don't have the ability to comply in-house. So a good example is probably EPR schemes. There is such a large amount of schemes worldwide, and if you are shipping worldwide, you do need to be compliant with all of them. Businesses need support with collating that data, handing it over, and complying with all of the schemes and registering with PROs. And it's just a big project to manage in-house for some businesses. So bringing in a third-party organisation to help with that is really helpful to some businesses, and we've got many different ones. So we've got support for EPR, we have support with testing. A lot of the time a testing house needs to be an accredited testing house, otherwise the test report is not valid to meet certain regulations. So obviously you can't do that testing in-house. So having a testing partner has been really helpful, and they've honoured a member discount. So members benefit from being a UKFT member by getting discount on testing, auditing, certification. So, yeah.
If you're not a member of UKFT yet, operate in fashion and textiles, this is the practical support you could be benefiting from. To find out more, visit ukft.org/membership. And if you're already a member, get in touch to find out how we can support. So Ava, you mentioned when we were talking earlier about a company whose products were seized. Can you tell us a bit more about that and how we helped?
Yeah, so we hear about problems that our members have faced, normally when they need some support and how to fix it. So we were made aware of a member business who was selling products to Portugal. They had not included Portuguese translations and the product had been seized. So there's certain elements of the labelling that is mandatory to be translated, and it's for consumer safety reasons. And it's important to get those translated. Most UKFT members, well, all UKFT members have access to a translation bank. So we can check over their labelling, make sure it's compliant with the markets that they sell into, also provide the translations that they might need, and make sure that that issue doesn't happen. More commonly, it does happen at the border rather than being seized off, in Portugal. But unfortunately, that's what happened to one of our members. So we help them sort that out.
And I think that translation library, even that is really valuable, isn't it? Because again, individual companies having to go and get this bank of translations.
Yes.
You know, if we've got common translations that you can access, that's really useful.
Yes, yeah. Translations can be quite expensive. And we've built up quite a large bank, which, all the generic labelling that most sort of businesses in our sector require, we tend to have.
That's really useful. And how does UKFT engage with government and policymakers to keep members informed about changes in regulations? So I guess what they can expect to be having to deal with in the future. How do we look at that?
So we work quite closely with the UK government on proposed regulatory developments, often providing feedback on, industry feedback. We're also a Eurotex member, so that is a sort of organisation similar to ours that represents the EU sector, EU sort of textiles and fashion product sector. So we're a member. They feed into the European Commission on proposed legislation.
And there's a lot coming through in Europe at the moment as well, isn't it?
It's probably more busy with the European legislation at the moment. But yeah, I mean, it's really useful. We get early insights into what's being developed. We can also support the Commission in how that could affect our industry negatively. So yeah, really, really valuable part of being a UKFT member is that we get that information earlier on. We know what's happening, what developments are happening, and we can also try and shape them to work for the industry. So that's really helpful. We also have a good working relationship with the American Apparel and Footwear Association and various others globally as well. So
thanks, Ava. Thank you for listening to this episode of Grow Your UK Fashion and Textile Business with UKFT. If you're facing compliance, regulatory and labelling challenges, UKFT can help. Learn more about membership at ukft.org/membership. Thanks for watching. For more episodes, subscribe to the channel and visit ukft.org. Our podcast is available on all major platforms. Thank you.